Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to answer the question, what is the Crystal War? In this video, we'll go over an overview of the whole war, then we'll go into more details about the major battles within the Crystal War. So, let's dive in. The Crystal War erupted in 862 CE and lasted until 864 CE. The Allied forces of Altana battled the combined armies of the Shadow Lord, known collectively as the Beastmen Confederate, in a conflict that raged over both the Quan and Midarshian continents. It is recorded as the longest and bloodiest war in Vanadil's history. In the year 855 CE, a mysterious entity arrived in the land of Valdoia with the howling hosts of the underworld at his command. The impact of the Shadow Lord's appearance was akin to a meteor strike. In a few short years, the Shadow Lord had united the desperate factions of the Beastmen into a single organized force and declared his intention to scour every last child of Altana from the face of Vanadil. During the fourth moon of the year 862 CE, he had already begun his invasion of the Sandorian region of Norvalen. In the opening stages of the war, the nations of Vanadil attempted to fight the Beastmen independently, only to suffer repeated losses against their enemies' vastly superior numbers. At the behest of Archduke Comlanot of Juno, the nations of Sandoria, Bastok, and Winders put aside their historical enmities and formed the allied forces of Altana. As the isolated nations began sharing information and resources, they gradually developed the infrastructure to plan operations that would span entire continents. Let's set the stage real quick for everyone. The Republic of Bastok, the Kingdom of Sandoria, and the Federation of Winders conquered all of the known lands of Vanadil and began to turn their eyes towards each other's lands. As they turned their attention upon each other, kindred, winged beastmen known as demons by the five races of Altana began to amass in the frozen Northlands. They were more intelligent than the other beastmen of Vanadil, and wore dark armor to protect them from both physical and magical attacks. They were under the leadership of the powerful demon known as the Shadow Lord, who directed his people to send out emissaries to the other beastmen of the south. The orcs, Quadov, and Yagudo all agreed to submit to his authority. Under the Shadow Lord's orders and leadership of demon commanders, the Beastmen began to raid small encampments for supplies for his future plans. All three kingdoms were raided using tactics and weapons they had never seen before. The fourth and largest raid was at the island of Quifflem near the small fishing town of Juno. The Humes fought against a new adversary, the massive Gigas warriors, the fourth beastmen to be recruited by the Shadow Lord. The Humes were slaughtered. The few that escaped fled to Juno. The leader of Juno proposed succession from the Republic of Bastok. The president accepted to withdraw his musketeers from Juno to his capital to defend it against the rising beastmen. The new city-state of the Grand Duchy of Juno was formed, and their leader, Comlanot, was made Archduke. No one knew where the strange person came from, but the citizens recognized his intelligence and military brilliance. The Archduke replaced the musketeers by recruiting some of the best warriors found in Vanadil, and he trained them himself. They became known as the Ducal Guard. This increase in security lessened the Beastmen raids and increased commerce and trade in Juno. The city began to grow, and three bridges, Harbor Bridge, Market Bridge, and Artisan Bridge, were built, connecting Juno with the other major continents of the Middle Lands. The timeline of each of the battles of the Crystal War are documented as Battle of Jugner, followed by a battle at Bastok, then Winders, followed by the Siege of Juno, and the Battle of Garlead Citadel, to the Battle of Tabnasia, with the final battle taking place in Zarkabard. The most significant step towards the execution of cooperative operations was taken during the battle waged in the defense of Juno. The retreat of the Beastmen Confederate in the face of the three nations' coordinated attacks served to further strengthen the newfound alliance. After the triumph at the Siege of Juneau, the Allied forces began retaliating against the Beastmen across the lands of Vanadil. In the fourth moon of the year 863 CE, a final resounding victory was won in the Battle of Zakarbar, where the main forces of the Beastmen Confederate was smashed under the combined military might of Altana's armies. Castle Zaval fell to the Allies soon after. In the year 864 CE, the Orcish hosts, who had refused to concede defeat, were the last forced into the Northern Sea, and that ended 2 long years of bloody warfare. The Beastmen Confederate advanced on Jugner with 100,000 soldiers. Yet, despite repeated requests for aid, Marquis Rohan was only sent a paltry 300 reinforcements from the Royal Knights under the command of Count Archat. The Marquis attempted to use his intimate knowledge of the forest to blunt the progress of the massive army, but with barely 1,000 troops to stand against a sea of beastmen, he was hopelessly outnumbered. News of the elite Norvalan Knights' defeat came as a sobering shock to the capital, but it was merely a prelude to the looming horror of the Crystal War. The first large assault by the Shadow Lord was taken against the Republic of Bastok. The Quadov had tunneled their way from Palbro mines to the mines of Bastok. The mortal enemy of the Galka, Antica, were also recruited by the Shadow Lord for the assault. They used the Core Loco tunnels, the same tunnel the Galka used to flee their home to enter Bastok. The Hume and the Galka pushed back the Horde from entering the metalworks and sealed off parts of the Zuran mine, but lost many of their own to achieve this victory. The Shadow Lord launched an invasion of Windhurst by sending 30,000 of his best troops to destroy the city. The Beastmen attacked at Odin's Gate, only defended by 1,000 warlocks, Mithrin hunters, and Cardians. The Windhurstian army was no match for the advancing horde. They breached the gates and began to move towards Heaven's Tower. Just as it looked like all hope was gone, a bright light from the east appeared. The minister of the Opistry, Karuha Baruha, appeared along with the avatar Fenrir, whom the Star Sibyl had forbid summoning. Fenrir pounced on the beastmen, ripping dozens apart with each swing of its paw. The beastmen fled, and Karuha Baruha and Fenrir pursued. Neither were ever seen again. With the dramatic decrease in Orcish troops, the Agudo and the Quadov began to lose their faith in the Shadow Lord. They withdrew from the war and went into hiding. The Shadow Lord attempted to enlist the aid of the Sahagin and Tonberry, but was largely unsuccessful. Seeing the Beastmen's power weakening, the Archduke Comlanot gathered the allied forces of Altana to the city-state of Juneau to plan a final advance on the Shadow Lord. The Archduke himself also petitioned that the Empire of Ott-Ergen join the war, but the Empire once again refused. The Dark Lord sent Gigas warriors to assault Juneau before they could assemble a planned attack. Under the leadership of the Archduke, the allied forces of Altana pushed back the troops. Even with a mountain of their own dead to impede their advance, the endless waves of Quadov continued to push forward. Battlements were shattered under a hail of cannon fire and Gigas-thrown boulders. The forces of the Beastmen Confederate that pressed the fortress city of Juneau on all three sides finally converged on the vulnerable Batilia front. 1, 2, and then 3 of the 4 ramparts that protected the city crumbled under the assault. The Allied forces rallied their troops and launched a coordinated counterattack that resulted in a critical victory against the Beastmen invasion. The remaining Gigas fled toward Delphux Tower, where they remain to this day. With the help of the other beastmen, the Yagudo finished building Castle Altroja, from where the Yagudo cut off the magic-wielding Taru from the rest of the world. The Kingdom of Sandoria secretly attempted to construct a passway from their stronghold Garleech Citadel into Summerouge campaign to help the Taru of Windurst. 500 of the kingdom's best men were sent to protect the workers. Yet, the orcs discovered the movement of the Sandorian knights to the citadel and informed the Yagudo. The two beastmen attacked the stronghold at the point where the workers and the knights were inside the tunnels. Every last knight was slaughtered, and the beastmen razed the building. An invasion of the Sandorian monastery at Devoy by the orcs took place shortly after the fall of the Garleech Citadel. The orcs launched a surprise attack from the surrounding mountains and subdued the city. The king, knowing he couldn't defend his kingdom from a direct attack, sent a lone royal knight to Devoy. The knight carried documents about the powerful weapon Lightbringer, thought to be housed at Tabnasia. The king planned the knight be captured and documents discovered by the orcs, and they would turn their attention away from Sandoria and towards their allies in Tabnasia. The plan worked, and the orcs began for an assault on the stronghold. Sandoria informed Windurst, Bastok, and the Empire of Ott-Ergen about the massing orcish troops and their plan to invade Tabnasia. Windurst and Bastok agreed to send in troops, but Ott-Ergen, allies of Tabnasia for generations, refused to supply men or equipment, an action that would dissuade many from helping Ott-Ergen in the future. King's plan to bring Ott-Ergen into the Crystal War failed. Under the cover of darkness, the orcs launched the largest battle of the Crystal War. 100,000 troops and war machines besieged the Tabnasian stronghold. The allied forces did not stand a chance. Messengers were sent out requesting reinforcements, but they couldn't arrive in time. Every last warrior, mage, and hunter was slaughtered, and the citizens attempted to flee their destroyed home through underground tunnels. An explosion erupted inside the tunnels so powerful the entire peninsula of Tabnasia was separated from the Kowan continent and formed an archipelago that is present today. Few know how it happened, yet the 5 races of Altana believe it was caused by an orcish secret weapon. The blast not only destroyed the orcs, but united the 3 nations to form the allied forces of Altana. Together, Comlanant and Cid began work on a secret weapon. Comlanant provided Cid with the knowledge of the crystal-powered engines, and with this technology, Cid designed a ship able to fly. He called his new creation an airship, and named his prototype the First Ship. Yet, allied forces of Altana were anxious to defeat the Shadow Lord, and decided to go to battle without the weapon. The champion of Bastok, Volker, led the remaining troops of the allied forces of Altana to the frozen northlands of Zarkabard. The troops were battle-hardened from the many skirmishes they had experienced during the Great War, but even with their experience, they were no match for the demons. When the driving snows suddenly died and the shaft of sunlight pierced through the clouds to illuminate the battlefield, a rousing cheer rose from the ranks of the allied forces. The feint to split the forces of their enemies had succeeded. The army before them was clearly outnumbered. However, those cheers turned into shouts of dismay as the battle was joined. Volker decided to send a small, covert group to penetrate the Castle Saval Baileys. He chose the best warriors, one of each race, to join him in his mission. The soldiers they faced were no ordinary troops, but the elite vanguard of the Shadow Lord, highly trained and handpicked from among the champions of each beastman race. The elite squad battled their way to the tallest tower where the Shadow Lord commanded his army from an obsidian throne. The heroes fought the Dark Lord, and with one final thrust from Volker's weapon, the Shadow Lord was defeated. The allied forces claimed victory, but only at a tremendous cost. With the vanquishment of the Shadow Lord, the demons vanished as well. The allied forces of Altana won, and the Crystal War was at an end. Hopefully everyone learned what the Crystal War was and understand a little bit more about the impact of the Shadow Lord, who can also be seen in the Final Fantasy XIV raid, Juno, the First Walk. If you liked this video, please give it a like as it helps the channel out, and if you want to see more Final Fantasy XI content, please subscribe as it really helps the channel grow. Comment down below if you have done the newest raid in Final Fantasy XIV and your thoughts on Shadow Lord, or what your favorite Wings of the Goddess memory is. See you again soon.